It's a Taste to Consider podcast. Yes, indeed, we are back for another episode. Let's get into the show. Let me intro the show and let's get into it because I'm getting a little hungry right now and I'm ready to eat. It's a Taste to Consider podcast. I'm your host, Derek Silver. The Taste of a Taste to Consider podcast, the podcast of many tastes. We are back for another episode. Yes, indeed. Another week has ended. Another week is beginning. We are back for another episode of Taste to Consider podcast. Shout out to everybody who listened to the last week's episode, Psychopaths, Part 1. I'm not on social media. I wasn't advertising anything like that. So shout out to everybody who listened to it. Shout out to everybody who watched it on YouTube. Um, Shout out for the feedback that was sent to me. Yeah. Shout out to the people who hit me up about the episode. Like I said, I'm not on social media at the current moment. And just shout out to the people who hit me up offline and, let me know about the show and everything, how they felt about it and stuff like that. Um, I appreciate it. Appreciate all the feedback. I definitely need it. That's a love language of mine, so I appreciate all the love you gave me. Oh man. Um, yeah. Also, shout out to everybody who read my two new blog posts on greatestiamblog.com. Make sure you go to greatestiamblog.com. That's greatestiamblog.com. And even though I'm not on social media, my socials are still up. So all the information is in my link tree. Um, yeah. Appreciate once again everybody who read the post and who sent me feedback offline about my two new blog posts. 2 weeks ago, I wrote a blog post called I Am a Master. Check it out if you haven't already. And Saturday, this past Saturday, I wrote another blog post. I Am Persistent. So check that one out if you haven't already. Like I said, shout out to all the people who gave me some love on it and everything. Because once again, I'm not on social media at the current moment. I'm not advertising, marketing, posting, or whatever about anything that I'm doing. Yeah, I had to take a break. It's something that I have done on a regular for a few years now, where I take breaks. Um, I'm not sure when or if I'm even going to get back on social media. Honestly, I don't know. I mean, I've mentioned it before on past episodes about my struggles with social media when it comes to my mental health and stuff like that, and you know, um, certain things that I struggle with it. I'm not gonna go into it right now on this episode, but if you've been a long time listener, you should know. And if you want to ask me, you can ask me. But I'm pretty sure I'll eventually talk about it again on the show. I mean, it will things always seem to tie in together. And that's what I was saying on the last episode, and even previous episodes. Shoot, all my episodes, honestly, that that a lot of these, shoot, all these episodes, they pretty much when I'm not. Well, I'll say I'm not gonna say all the episodes. I'll say majority of the episodes pretty much come effortless for me because of um, the Most High. I mean, shoot, not to diminish my talents, my gifts, my efforts, my hard work, or anything like that. because they definitely do play a role. But a lot of the stuff that comes with my podcast, finding topics, putting the topics together, having themes that aren't really your traditional themes and stuff like that. That'd be all. That'd be the Most High right there. Honestly, divine intervention. Um, and like I just run. I mean, I just run with it, honestly. But there has been times where I infiltrated. I infiltrated the where I had my own agendas, or I was steeped into my ego, or trying to get in a push it push some sort of agenda across if I was like in a certain state of mind, whether I was angry or I was hurt or something like that. But even though during those times, those pretty much do come together in a way where it's not, it's not solely me, where, I can take, some things that I'm personally going through, and God will still find a way to mesh it into uh, a productive um, episode, where the topics are in a way helping me as well as helping others and stuff like that. So yeah, so I'll sit here and say all of them, all of the episodes, have been but yeah, you know what I'm getting at. Even when we try to take control of things, um, the Most High still has his way of intervening in it and protecting us, or giving us a lesson uh, where we have a space to grow or learn something. But it's still all about us being open to it. But yeah, not to get all preachy up in here and everything like that. But y'all know I like to just ramble sometimes and reflect on some things, and which I'm about to do right now. Last episode, I I just started rambling about the divine feminine energy and stuff like that. So I will be doing that again, but just in a different way, in a different topic or whatever. But just this is just what a taste to consider podcast is all about. It's about me just giving you a taste of who I am and my thoughts, my views, um, certain feelings and stuff like that. And this is all about you know um, placing everything out there, or placing everything on the table to give you something to consider. It's not about you agreeing with me. I'm not trying to get followers or convert people or conform people to my way of thinking and all that other stuff. It's just about, me being myself, having an open space to be myself, and, giving people things to consider. Yeah. So this episode, actually, I did write out a outline. Last episode I didn't have an outline. For all the first time listeners, I usually write out an outline on paper. If you're watching on YouTube, you've seen it plenty of times. Um, but I also I have a visual outline as well that that I um I use, where I have screenshots, clips, what else? Notes, and I I take I take the visual outline and I make a written outline as well, just to keep me in, on point, and kind of away from rambling and stuff like that. Uh, so this episode, I actually do have a written outline ready. While I'm thinking about it now, um, like last week's episode, just talking about divine intervention and the Most High being such a big part of my podcast, um and stuff like that. Uh, Damn, I lost my train of thought that fast. That's crazy. I'm trying to keep stuff on one side of my mind so I can mention that's not in the outline. See, that's why I actually have outlines to keep me on point, and I try to take as much notes as I can. But then at the same time, I'll be battling with myself. I'll be like, I don't want to be too robotic. But yeah, I lost my train of thought that fast. But no, okay, I got it back. So yeah, talking about divine intervention and the Most High being involved in my podcast and stuff like that. Like like I said last week, I didn't have a written outline put together, but I still had my visual one. And just how the show came together and how it flowed, and that was some of the things that um that was some of the positive feedback that I got about the flow of the podcast and stuff like that. And yeah, it's just I lost my train of thought again. I'm trying to keep this certain topic on my mind while I'm trying to speak about something else. But yeah, let me see if I can get it back. This is horrible. No, it's not horrible. It happens. I'm human. There you go, Dirk. Trying to beat yourself up. See, it's okay to talk to yourself. But no, yeah, just the fact that I didn't have a written outline and stuff like that, but the show still came together. I was still in a perfect place, and then me kind of like worrying and having anxiety about it, but it being like certain people's their favorite one of their favorite shows. So yeah, that's I think that's pretty much what I was trying to think about. But the other part of that I was the other part of of my mind that I was trying to hold on to that I wouldn't forget that kept having me from losing my train of thought was I mentioned this show before on the podcast. So I guess I can say this is the TV and movie reviews, but this was something that I wanted to mention because this show that I watch comes on every Sunday, and it's called Evil, and it's on the Paramount Plus network. And I love this show. This show, let me pull up the description of it. And I wish I knew more people that watched this damn show so I can have discussions about this. But let me pull up the description. The show is in season 3 right now. It's called Evil. Um, is currently in season 3. The IMDb rating is 7.7 out of 10, which is good, and the Rotten Tomatoes percentage is 95%. So it's a real good ass show. So let me read the description. It says skeptical psychologist Kristen Bouchard joins David Acosta, who is training to be a Catholic priest, and a blue-collar contractor as they investigate the church's backlog of unexplained mysteries, including supposed miracles, demonic possessions, and other extraordinary occurrences. Their job is to assess if there is a logical explanation or if something truly supernatural is at work, examining the origins of evil along the dividing line between science and religion. And I swear to you, like this show is very entertaining, as well as like for me, like I'm the type of person where I'm a seeker of truth. I'm a student of everything, and I'm very intrigued by the quote unquote supernatural, the spiritual world, spiritual realm, and God, the Most High, Spirit, Universe, whatever you want to call, what I'm saying, stuff like that, and then the duality or the polarity of good and the quote unquote good and bad or good and evil, whatever. You know what I'm saying? But this show speaks to a lot about like faith and belief and stuff like that. So even if you aren't religious, it if you consider yourself, whether you consider yourself religious, spiritual, or atheist, it's still speaks to everyday life. And like, I love this damn show. And I wish I knew more people who watch this so I can have conversations with them about it. But yeah, check it out. The show is called Evil. So yeah, since I started talking about a TV show, let me get into this. The new Black Panther trailer came out. Black Panther 2 um came out, and I'm on the fence about it. I mean, I've already, like, if you aren't on social media, and specifically Twitter, you don't you probably don't know there's a movement, and there's been a movement um for recast T'Challa. T'Challa was the comic book character that Chadwick Boseman played. And of course, his untimely death. Well, I ain't gonna say that. I don't understand why people use those terms, um, you know, when it comes to death and stuff like that. Because I mean, we get so attached to, like, the whole a person's life, that in their age and stuff like that, that we consider deaths that are, I guess, before old age, untimely and stuff like that. But I mean, if it was meant to happen, then it was meant to happen. So I don't, yeah. But that's a whole nother conversation. But yeah, the death of Chadwick Boseman, and um, I'm not feeling the whole thing, and I've discussed this before on the podcast. I'm not feeling this whole um getting rid of the character T'Challa based off of Chadwick's death. And I feel like that is weird as hell, because we've well, I ain't gonna say we, but I've been around long enough to see a lot of superhero movies and stuff like that. And I've seen, like, particularly with, like, the DC comics characters, Superman, Batman, and stuff like that. And shoot, even with Marvel, when you talk about Spider-Man and stuff like that, we've seen different actors play these fictional characters. Like, these are fictional characters. Whatever happens with the actor shouldn't the real person, the actor, shouldn't affect a fictional character. And it seems that Marvel is set on that being the case. And me being the person that I am, and you know what I'm saying, I feel as though that I'm looking beyond the black and white situation of things. I feel like it speaks to a lot of what black people are used to, and that is death, mourning, and stuff like that. And like I said, there's been a movement. There was a petition and everything about this recast T'Challa. And I'm going to read a couple of things. And this first thing that I'm reading comes from, let me see. First thing that I'm reading comes from Chadwick Boseman himself, his own words. He says, quote, "I want people to see the role and not see me. That is the job of an actor, where it's not about me, it's about the role. People remember the role and what you did with it." And that was him, in his own words, speaking about the character T'Challa before his death. And here's another quote from the head writer of Black Panther. It says, quote, "Chadwick Boseman understood how important it is that T'Challa stands shoulder to shoulder with the likes of Captain America and Thor and Iron Man. That future generations and the generation of today need to see a black man as their hero. And we just wanted to make sure we did right by the character." And this was before, of course, his death, and before they started filming this, new Black Panther movie. And even Chadwick Boseman's family came out and said that those were Chadwick's wishes to keep T'Challa alive. That T'Challa is more important. The character of T'Challa is more important than him being an actor playing the role of T'Challa. But since the new trailer has came out, all you hear is people talking about their emotions, how sad they are, how much this is going to hurt, how they cry watching the trailer and stuff like that. And in my mind, all I'm thinking is this is reliving trauma, and this is what Black people are used to. And they're playing off of that role. And I feel like Marvel, Disney, and I'm even disappointed with the director of Black Panther, which is Ryan Coogler, a Black man, that he's even perpetuating this. I feel like they're all perpetuating this thing of mourning a Black man's death. Chadwick Boseman was a real person. Why are we reliving his death through a fictional character? This isn't appropriate. This isn't appropriate. Like, people are so caught up into their emotions and their feelings and stuff about it or whatever. Particularly Black people, we're so used to feeling emotional when it comes to death and mourning and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? That's part of the quote unquote culture, of Black people, and we're so caught up into it that we can't see beyond that and understand that this isn't appropriate. This isn't appropriate. Like, how do you think his family feels that they have to relive his death through a fictional character? Like, this is beyond, like, to me, this is disgusting. To me, and like, honestly, it really is, because this is a fictional character, and now they're marketing, advertising, and perpetuating a real person's death to push this movie. It's not right to me. It just isn't. It just isn't. Yeah. Moving on. All right, let me see. Where am I at right now? I got a clip. And let me play this clip. Yeah, it's just crazy. Making real death part of a fictional story. That's crazy. All right, let me pull this clip up. This is a clip from a movie that I thoroughly enjoy. And I thought, and like I talked about, if you read the blog post "I Am a Master," I always, even the in comedy movies or whatever, I always find tidbits or little stuff in movies that speak to something much more larger than what the movie is actually there for, and this is one right here. So this clip right here comes from the movie Vampire in Brooklyn with Eddie Murphy and Angela Bassett. So I'm gonna play this clip and we're gonna get into it.
We're talking about Jesus.
That's right.
Jesus said and Jesus went.
Oh, yeah.
Jesus heard and Jesus walked over.
Oh, yes.
Jesus, Jesus, Jesus.
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to talk about Jesus this evening. Because as the big man teaches us, it's two sides to every story. Not one, but two. A story is not one-sided. A story has a duality. There's two sides to every story. Which brings to mind the phrase, necessary evil. Now, I know many of you may hear the phrase necessary evil and you say to yourself, that don't even make no sense to me. Can't be no such thing as necessary. How's evil necessary? That don't match. That's plaids and stripes, evil and necessary. You see, because without bad, there is no good. Without light, there is no dark. You need both these things. You know what I'm saying? If every day is a sunny day, well, then what's a sunny day? Well, the bottom line, brothers and sisters, what I'm trying to tell you tonight is that evil is necessary. Evil is necessary. Thereby, if it's necessary, evil must be good. Evil is good. That's what I say.
Oh man. Yeah, so that was Eddie Murphy from Vampire in Brooklyn. And that part of the movie always stuck out to me because like I remember when I saw the movie, I forgot when the movie came out, but I was definitely younger than what I am now. So when I saw it, I'm thinking to myself, damn, that's absolutely right. Like I understood what was being said. And if you've seen the movie before, you know in the context why he was saying what he was saying. I'm not going to get into that because then that would be telling the whole plot and story of the movie. So if you haven't seen it, check it out. But yeah, evil is necessary. Evil. So evil should be good, right? And I think this is so much deeper. And I look at it like this speaks to polarity and duality, right? So I'm gonna read the definition of polarity. It says polarity can literally refer to a positive or negative electric charge. Less literally, it indicates something with two opposing but related qualities. You might visualize polarity as a battery holder with a plus sign on one end and a negative on the other. That's not the definition of polarity. That was more of a explanation of polarity. One explanation of polarity. One that I thought would be easily understood. And when I say that, for the example that he used, it says talking about a battery holder. And, you know, if you look at a battery, they have a positive side and a negative side. And when you put that battery into wherever it needs to go, that positive and negative side is also there. So you need both those positive and negative charges in order for whatever you put in that battery in to work, right? So both those negative and positive charges work together for a common goal, right? They have an end game. It's an end game to that positive and negative charge, to that polarity of this battery, right? So, and you know, recently I've been talking a lot about, you know, the black and white of things and how most people be so caught up into the black and white of stuff and forgetting the gray area. And I feel as though, you know, a lot of polarity speaks to that. You know, we understand the black and white, the negative and positive, but we forget the common goal of those two things working together and what they bring out. So, also with polarity, with that clip speaking to polarity, it also speaks to duality. But just to stick with polarity for right now, it says polarity is a relationship between two opposite characteristics or tendencies, like the polarity of two sides of a debate or of the superhero and a villain in a comic book. Polarity can literally refer to a positive or negative electric charge. Less literally, it indicates something with two opposing but related qualities. You might visualize polarity as a battery holder with a plus sign on one end and a negative on the other. More than just opposites, polarity suggests opposites that are interconnected. What would the light of day be without the dark of night? Good without evil, yin without yang. So yeah, polarity speaks to two opposites being connected and working together for a common goal. And like I said, we get so caught up into the black and white of things and just seeing as though that they're two separate things, good and evil, bad and good, up and down, cold, hot, and not understanding that these things are connected in a way that has some sort of common goal or some sort of end game to them. Because you can't have warm water without hot and cold, right? So these two things, even though they're opposites. I ain't gonna say separate. They're opposites, but they're still connected, right? You can't have spring and fall without hot or cold weather. But yeah, polarity, duality, all of it speaks to sort of the same thing, two opposites that have a common goal or are connected in some way, that have some end game or some sort of meaning depending on your perspective of things, So duality. What is duality or dualism? As the word suggests by the word dual within it, duality refers to having two parts, often with opposite meanings. Duality conveys you that every aspect of life is created from a balanced interaction of opposite and competing powers. So, I talk a lot about, trying to find balance with a situation and, like I said, black and white, the gray area, yin and yang, all that other stuff. All of that is related. But as I've stated before, there are extremes. There are extremes to hot, there are extremes to cold, there are extremes to up and down, there are extremes to, excuse me, there are extremes to love, there are extremes to fear, there are extremes to there are extremes to everything that has an opposite to it. There are extremes, but it's all about trying to find the balance. The feminine, the extremes to feminine energy that I mentioned on last episode, extremes to masculine energy, and then there's that in between, that gray area, that that place that defines the connection of these two opposites, right? So, just speaking a little bit more to polarity and duality, but we're going to use an example for duality. So, is duality a good thing? The ego causes the world of duality. Duality is the comparison, contrast, or division of things. The mind uses this dichotomy to help order the world we live in and to make associations. As with many characteristics of the ego, it's neither good nor bad. It just is. And that's why when I've been talking recently about black and white, you know what I'm saying? We as people in society in general just look at things in a black and white manner. And we forget that there's a gray area to things. And that gray area is a much more of a bigger picture or a balanced assessment or perception or perspective of what's actually going on, what happened, or what you're feeling and stuff like that. When you think about it, like, there really isn't a good or bad. There's just an extreme of something. There isn't any balanced of something. So yeah, we can describe these things as good or bad, but it's really just an extreme of something. So I'm gonna read something that I came across that deals with both the duality and polarity of things, right? So it says, um, the key to understanding how to have a better quality of life is understanding duality. Duality is the balance life. Duality is the balance life has between different forces. Knowing three easy examples of duality will help you to understand the force checks and balances. There are three easy examples of duality that will help you better understand how duality affects you and help you have a better life quality. The models presented below demonstrate three conflicts that humans encounter daily: peace and war, love and hate, up and down. Once you understand these three easy examples of duality, you will have a better quality of life. What is the concept of duality? Once again, this is an article that I'm reading that I thought was interesting that gave some good points. So it says duality when two opposing parts conflict with each other. Duality is when two opposing parts conflict with each other. The two opposing forces are a series of checks and balances that demonstrate the choices people have. And I think one thing that is key that has been noted twice so far is checks and balances. This is the portion where we have self-awareness, acceptance and accountability of the choices that we make in our lives, right? Once a person has identified one side of the force, they can understand the other in terms of what the first is not. And I'm a big Star Wars fan. I watch a lot of Star Wars movies and a lot of their shows. And the one of the things that they talk about it in the movie is the force. The force, the force, the force. And they talk about the dark side and, of course, the opposite, which is the light side. If even if you haven't watched any Star Wars, you know who Darth Vader is, and he was basically the the I don't want to say the king, but he was the that's who you associate with the dark side of the force, right? And when you think about the light side of the force, you think of who? Luke Skywalker, right? So that's why I always look at like the Star Wars movies as being, even though they're considered sci-fi movies, they're more spiritual as opposed to it being sci-fi. But you know, I like I said, I always look to the deeper messages of movies and TV shows and stuff like that. Not even that I look, I just sometimes majority of the time they hit me that way. But yeah. All right, back to the article. Let me see. It says these two forces are typically classified together using standard terms that oppose each other. One force will not survive without the other, quite like an understanding of life versus death. These two forces are opposite sides of the coin and can only be defined based on the other's characteristics. So basically, they're saying that even though you have these two sides, everybody is going to see them differently. Everybody is going to interpret them differently. Everybody's going to feel them differently. Even though these two sides are standard, they're going to be interpreted differently. They're going to be perceived differently, and they're going to have a different experience based off of it. It says the only way a person can reach an understanding of both extremes, that's the key word, extremes, is through spiritual duality and the knowledge of the terms. So you do have to have an understanding of the two sides or the two forces or the two opposites. A person will only live life to the extremes until they can define the middle ground. And that was something that I resonated with very well, because I have lived the extremes of both sides of things. You talk about mental illness, mental health, emotional health, physical health. I've been able to identify with the extremes of both the sides of those three um, aspects of life: the mental aspect, the emotional aspect, and the physical aspect. And now I'm in the I'm walking the path of trying to find the middle ground, trying to find a balance of them all, right? So it says duality can also be a technical term used in geometry and physics to explain interchangeable points and particle wave theory, both of which have a similar basis of the primary definition of the word. Um, it says, what does duality mean spiritually? Duality in the spiritual sense relies heavily on the concept of dualities to know ourselves and the complexities of life. These two opposing forces balance your life and can counteract each other if necessary. So yeah, that's with you know, um, that's what life is about. It's about the ups and downs, the goods and the bads, the hots and colds, and all that other stuff. You will experience these dualities or the polarity of things throughout life, whether it's directly or indirectly, whether it's, what I'm saying, part of our personal journey, or it's just an an accessory of the journey, if that makes sense. um, and it's up to us to find that balance and not live in these extremes of these two opposing forces. Um, and then if you are living these extremes, the way that the Most High works, the way the universe works, and stuff like that, is that they will counteract each other in some sort of way if you are living too much in the extremes of things. um I could be living a life so jaded of love and relationships or whatever, that, and we've seen these examples in movies, that somebody will pop up out of nowhere and make me fall in love, and then, what I'm saying, that will pull me out of this jaded mindset. Or I'm in this rut with my finances and stuff like that, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, an opportunity will come in place that will change my whole financial direction. But and that's what life is about. You know what I'm saying? Life will always have these moments in there, but it's all about whether we are open to them or not. Because we will get opportunities. One thing that I know, just based off of my life and going through the things that I've gone through with depression, anxiety, being jaded with love, going through rejection and abandonment, not having so good of relationships with people, whether it be friendships, work relationships, platonic, romantic, or whatever. You will have opportunities will come in your life that will counteract where your mind is at, how you're walking, how you're thinking, how you're living. You know what I'm saying? There will come times where these moments, these opportunities, these blessings, however you want to identify them as, will come and counteract these things. But it's just all about being aware and open to it. So, back to the article. It says, all things are considered to be on a continuum and are considered the extremes of the same thing. If you know about the duality, then you can harmonize the two sides and see the challenge from all perspectives instead of what is right or wrong. You can center yourself based on these perspectives and live in neither extreme. And that's basically saying that it's just finding the balance, understanding that there will be ups and downs, that there will be moments in your life where you will be insecure, and then there will be moments in your life where you'll be totally secure. But it's understanding not to fall so deep into your ego where you're not able to have any humility, where you're treating people bad because you're feeling bad, or you're treating people bad because you totally feel good, or you're treating people good because you feel bad and you want the good in return. You know what I'm saying? So it's layers to all of this. But back to the article. To understand this, the first and most challenging to comprehend duality in life is life versus death. These two forces are always balancing each other in our lives. The stark contrast in life and death demonstrates how easily dualities are acting on human lives. As humans, we know what life is. It is what we do every day, but it is difficult to understand death. It is a mystery and impossible to explain fully. We know that we have to live before we can die, and in that case, you cannot have one without the other. This is the fundamental duality that helps align all other dualities. If we are following spiritual duality, the person can be unafraid of death and accept the life they must lead. I mean, because when it comes down to it, like life and death, that's inevitable. We know that we are going to experience life and we are going to experience death. But the way that society is, the way we are brought up and stuff like that, we don't understand death because death isn't something that's talked about. I can recall as a young kid that I have a big family. My family is from the country, both sides, North Carolina, and I remember being a little kid and going to countless funerals of people that I did not know, but they were my family. And that gave me an extreme fear of death to the point where, like, it was to the point where I was afraid to fall asleep at night because I was afraid of death. So I was being pushed into this space that I knew nothing about. And it gave me an extreme fear. Extreme fear. Granted, I'm 40 years old today. I've been able to rise above a lot of those fears and those anxieties and those misunderstandings and stuff of death. But even though I've risen above them, they are still there. So they do pop up at times. They do trigger me at times and stuff like that. So that's why, lately I've been trying to emphasize about, healing and trauma and things that's in on those forces. So since we talking about forces and stuff like that, the forces of hit of trauma and stuff like that. So that's one side of it, you know what I'm saying? And I was on the extreme of it. Had this extreme fear of death because I didn't understand it. So now I'm becoming to understand death and stuff like that. I actually have a very curious mind about it to the point where I read and look at videos about near death experiences and stuff like that because I'm trying to learn about it. I'm trying to remove the fears and the anxieties that I have about death because death, is just the human form of our body going away, but not our actual spirit or whatever. But that's a whole nother conversation. So back to the article. It says, yeah, that's it. That's it of all I wanted to read. But yeah, there was just something I came across that clip, and I came across the words polarity and duality and how it fit with that clip. Yeah, so moving along. That is not a topic that I had last week, but we about to get into a topic that I had last week that I wanted to get into, which is why I'm calling this episode Psychopaths Part 2. But here we go. Let me see where I'm at in my visual outline to make sure I'm on point. Burp number 1 and 2. Okay. Lauren London. If you didn't know, Lauren London just recently did a interview on the In Real Life podcast, which is hosted by Angie Martinez. And I've always been a big fan of Angie Martinez and her interviews and stuff. And I wish she would release that Tupac interview that she has had ever since 1996. She keeps saying she don't want to release it because it might bring up old stuff. But damn, I need that interview. But yeah, Angie Martinez, she's a great radio personality. If you don't know, I went to college for communications. I have my degree in communications. I wanted to be on the radio. Well, you have me here now on a podcast, so I'm essentially finally doing what I went to school for. I have my own show and everything like that. So yeah. But I have experience in radio and TV or whatever because of college. But yeah, we here. And I think Angie Martinez is a great interviewer. And I very much enjoyed this interview. And I keep saying interview, but I really look at it like it was a great conversation. It was a great conversation. And that's what makes interviews great. Them not even seeming like interviews, they're just conversations. So it was I took notes. I watched the interview or the conversation twice, and I took notes the second time that I watched it. So I'll be going through some of my notes, and then I'll play the clip after I go through some of my notes. So just some of the things that I observed. But the interview / conversation was like 47 minutes long. Great. I encourage everybody to watch that, yeah, if you just go on YouTube and type in Angie Martinez and Lauren London, shit, you can just type in Lauren London and I'm sure it'll pop up. It just came out like a week or two ago. Like I said, I felt like it was a very refreshing to watch, very refreshing. And like I always talk about on this podcast about worshiping celebrities and stuff like that, and being so caught up into thinking that you know who these people are and stuff. But I would love to have a conversation with Lauren London, whether it's on my podcast or just, you know what I'm saying, just a private conversation. Like, because some of the thing, like shit, pretty much everything that she talked about on there is like I resonated with. And it was funny because like a lot of the thoughts and the things and stuff that she was talking about, same thoughts and things that I think about and talk about all the time. And I wish I actually had people that I can have these discussions with, but I don't have people that I can have these kind of like deep. These ain't even deep these real conversations. And I feel like people are so people are so lost into just the materialistic things of the world that they just can't go to another place. And I love conversations like this. Like whether you drunk or high, like people normally have these type of conversations that don't have them on the regular. They usually have these conversations when they drunk or high. But I can have these conversations any time of the day, whether I'm drunk or high. But yeah. And it was crazy because it got to the point where I was listening and watching the interview that I was like, I need to look up her birthday and see what her sign is because we have too much in common. And sure enough, I looked it up. She's a Sagittarius. Her birthday is like 4 or 5 days after mine. She's a Sagittarius, and it makes absolute sense, that she's who she is. And she kept saying how she's she loves the truth. She's a seeker of truth and stuff. And that just resonated with me so much. A lot of the stuff that she was talking about and stuff. And once you watch the interview, even even like it's crazy because like what I just finished talking about with the Eddie Murphy clip and Polarity and Duality, that stuff came to me even before I even saw the Lauren London clip that I'm gonna play in a few, and before I watched the interview. So like I said, the Most High God always brings this shit together, and this ain't no coincidence. It's no coincidence that a lot of the stuff that was talked about in this interview aligns with what I just talked about with Polarity and Duality and the Eddie Murphy clip. Just crazy, blows my mind. But thank you, God. So yeah, like I said, I'm gonna point out some things from the interview, and then I'll go into the specific clip that I came across that actually brought me to the full interview. Usually, people just focus on clips and they don't go to the whole interview or whatever. But I felt the need that I had to go to this full interview to get the full context of things. But let me just go through some of my notes real quick from the interview. Yeah, one of the things, like, because the title, I believe this was the first full episode of Angie Martinez's podcast, which is called In Real Life Podcast. And she said they were coming to talk about death, and which makes sense because of what Lauren London went through. And one of the first things that was talked about in this episode was death etiquette. And Angie Martinez and Lauren London was talking about how a lot of people don't have death etiquette. And, I was just speaking about that. A lot of people don't know about death. A lot of people don't understand death. A lot of people don't talk about death because it's an uncomfortable conversation. Because our understanding of it is just the end. And it takes me back to what I was talking about even before Polarity and Duality with the Chadwick Boseman stuff. Like, this whole situation is not good death etiquette. Like, they're using a man's death to market a movie, a real man's death to market a fictional character. They're killing a fictional character based off of a real person's death. It's just weird as fuck, and it's disrespectful. It's just disgusting. But like I was saying, I feel like it's deeper than that. I feel like they understand that black people are used to death, and we come together when it's time to mourn death and all that other stuff. So, shoot, over the past few years, what we've been accustomed to, Black Death. So, hey, let's use it for the marketing of this movie. But one thing that Lauren talked about also was being intentional and genuine with, conversations and being there for people and supporting people and stuff like that. And not, basically my interpretation, this part is not being cookie cutter with things and doing things in order to say that you were there to support somebody or, to receive something back from somebody because you showed some support or was there for somebody and stuff like that. Because that is a real thing. A lot of people do that. Show support for people in order to say that that's what they doing. Or to say that they're a good friend, or to receive something back from somebody else, and that's an extreme of being in your fear of rejection or abandonment, or your fear of not being loved and stuff like that. So people go to the extremes to support or be there from somebody, and it's not really genuine. You know what I'm saying? It may have a tiny space of genuineness to it, or coming from a good place, but ultimately it comes from the greater portion of it comes from an extreme. What else? One thing that was brought up during it was Lauren talked about this. She was like loving people and wanting to fix their problems. And this is something that I talked about on the last episode about, And that goes hand in hand with the fear of a rejection and abandonment and being attached to somebody and kind of like being too invested into their lives and stuff like that. And sort of it could be also used as a form of manipulation and control, loving somebody so much that you want to fix their problems and, not really allowing them to live their lives and stuff like that. But she said loving people and wanting to fix their problems, learn how to sit. She was like, a lot of people, and this goes back to the being intentional and genuine, is, just learn how to sit with people and, go through things with them. It doesn't always, this is my interpretation of what she said now, don't always be focused on doing and, instead be focused on being and, just your presence, you know, is more than enough than trying to fix the problem for somebody else. Just you being there and having your presence and your energy and stuff like that is much more important than trying to actually do and fix the problem or whatever. Another interesting thing that she said, which I mentioned a lot on this podcast, is that food can contribute to your depression. She mentioned how, in her depressive moments, during the time of Nipsey's death, and even just her being an emotional eater, even before Nipsey's death or whatever, that food can contribute to your depression. And we talk a lot about comfort food and all that other stuff, and when you get into these modes of sadness and stress and depression, even though you might not think that you're depressed or whatever, but you find yourself always running to these comfort foods or whatever. That's already your mind telling you that you need these foods to make you feel comfortable. But then those foods are compounding on to what you already feeling or whatever. And she talked about how, her being an emotional eater affects her depression even more and her weight and stuff like that. She also mentioned shadow work. And I talked about shadow work plenty of times before. If you don't know what it is, look it up. It'll be more beneficial for you to look shadow work up. For me, it'll be more beneficial for you to look it up rather than me telling you what it is, because shadow work will mean something different to each individual. Trust me. She also mentioned about, Nipsey not being perfect, but he had good intentions and he meant well, and how important that is, because, we're all human, so we all will make mistakes and stuff like that, make wrong choices. And even, this is just my coming from me now, that even choices that you perceive as being wrong, we just talked about polarity and duality, they may not be wrong in the person's eyes or thoughts or whatever that's actually doing it, but it may look that way to you based off of how you have gone through life, the things that you experience and stuff like that. So it's kind of a thing of us trying to hold grace for other people and really understanding where they're coming from. And that's one thing where it's important about communication and comprehension comes in play. Also, she says she wants peace and to give peace. She prays for it a lot. She wants simple accomplishments, not what's expected of her. She wants what God's purpose is for her. And that wasn't verbatim, that was me paraphrasing it. Yeah, what else? And some things that I observed from some of the from the conversation, the interview, that once you watch it, you may resonate with it or see it when I say it, depending on what type of life you've lived or the things that you experience. But you can tell, to me, I could tell that she still holds trauma and fear of love or losing a person based off of that, which is understandable because of what she went through. What else? I also noticed that she talked about not wanting to be in a relationship, and I kind of looked at that as her fear of her fear of love or losing the person that she loves, and even her not wanting to start over again. What else? And she also talked about, she doesn't want to be in another relationship. She doesn't want to get married, and how, you can exist alone. And that's something that I used to think a lot back in the day, because I lived, if you listen to my podcast enough and heard me speak outside of the podcast or write on the blog, I've lived a lot of my time alone, even when I had people in my life, whether it was my own doing or maybe me attracting these people in my life. Um, and I feel like it's a combination of those things. And, but I do believe that you shouldn't exist alone. I definitely do. I don't believe that's the case. You shouldn't exist alone. It's about finding the right people for you, the right tribe, and stuff like that. And I think a lot of that speaks to people being open and vulnerable, with how they feel and stuff like that. And you will only be able to progress and get to a place you want to be, or be around the people you want to be, or have this tribe that you want, or this family, or these friends, or this romantic relationship, if you can only do that if you're vulnerable. I mean, and that comes from me learning and also experiencing. And even though I still, trying to find the middle ground or the balance of those things, I do believe and understand that. And yeah, I see a lot of people that deal with, a lot of people deal with not being vulnerable, and they want certain things out of relationships, but they aren't even vulnerable with the person that they're dealing with, or the people that's in their lives, and they expect to progress to marriage or kids or healthy friendships or healthy family relationships and stuff like that. Like, I say to myself, it don't make, and I'd be like, yeah, that just don't make fucking sense. So I'm talking to them as well as talking to myself. But yeah. And one thing that Angie Martinez mentioned during the interview or the conversation was that two emotions people operate from are love and fear. And I totally agree. I mean, that's pretty much what it's all about. Love and fear. I talked about it before on episodes that love and fear are the umbrellas, the top of the umbrella, and under those two umbrellas you have all these layers of things, that deal with love and deal with fear or whatever. But yeah, it's a great interview, conversation, podcast. I wish it was more like that were in the mainstream and that was displayed on social media. And that's funny thing about social media when it comes to this the clip that I'm getting ready to play. And I'm sitting here looking, and I don't know everybody because the clip was played across several different platforms, but you see certain familiars and stuff like that. And even the case of just how social media is, period. Social media is just is not reality. It's a fake world, and we just get so totally that actually is social media. To me, is actually perpetuates the extremes in our lives or whatever. A lot of people try to find love, attention, and stuff like that on social media. It perpetuates and it exacerbates loneliness, sadness, depression, anxiety. I mean, although, you know what I'm saying, it's good, quote unquote, good things to social media where you can learn certain things or connect with certain people that you haven't connected with in a while and stuff like that. But ultimately, social media perpetuates and exacerbates the extremes of people's, to me, this is my thoughts on it, extremes of people's struggles, their difficulties and stuff like that. And it's crazy because I see it even with older people, like with my parents, uh, uncles and aunts, other older people that I know that's not in my family and stuff like that. Like, you see that there ain't no exceptions for how social media will exacerbate and perpetuate your struggles and difficulties and stuff like that. And I know a lot. I ain't gonna say a lot. I know some people look at it like I just totally am jaded from social media and stuff like that. But no, I'm calling out the real. Social media is not a good place. It's just not, because people look at it like it's a real world, and it's not. It is not reality. We're so caught up into social media that we don't even understand what reality is anymore, and it affects our lives. It affects our progress. It affects our growth. It affects our creativity. You know what I'm saying? There are definitely people out there who navigate through it very well, and um, I recognize those people. I've had conversations with with those people. A lot of like therapists and influencers and stuff like that. But you know what I'm saying? They've even told me that they have struggles with, social media and stuff like that. But yeah. Um Let me play this clip. Because yeah, time is moving. Time is moving. I might not even get to no blackity black woke segment again, but it's all good. Let me pull this clip up. Let me see. I got it in my text messages. I text message myself a lot with topics and screenshots and stuff like that as well, to keep myself reminded of things when I put my agenda and stuff together, my outline. Let me see. Okay, here we go. Here's the clip. And before I play this clip, I'm going to preface, like, this clip is 2 minutes and 20 seconds long. But make sure you watch the whole interview and the conversation. But particularly, even beyond this point in the interview, was like 38 minutes in, I believe, 38 minutes, 55 seconds in to the interview conversation. But even after that, it goes into further details. So even if you don't watch the full interview, go and listen to what was being said and discussed after this portion of the interview. And like I said, this portion of the interview was around the 38-minute mark. So make sure, if you're not going to listen to the whole interview, it's only 40 seconds long and 47 minutes long, but it's definitely worth it. Like, I'm telling you, it's worth it. But if you don't listen to the whole jump, go to the 38-minute mark, listen to what I'm about to play right here, and then what's said afterwards, because it's relevant to this particular clip. And that's why it's very important to not get so caught up into these little 1 minute clips and all that other stuff, because that shit just is clickbait. But let's get to the clip.
Think I have another perspective on relationships, and you don't want to have that conversation with me.
Okay.
I think a lot of them are ego driven and they're not pure.
I believe that too.
So why would I take myself in this vulnerable state into my ego and I'm trying to get out of it? I'm in death of the ego space. Why do I need why? Does that make my life complete? I'll never get married. Does that mean I'm not on purpose?
I need you to explain.
I'm gonna get a lot of slack for this one because I have a whole thing about it.
No, I need to know.
Okay.
That. I mean, that's not a small thing to drop. Like,
Okay.
Because relationships are hard as fuck.
Absolutely.
Right? And so
Mine was
it was
very hard. Hell yeah.
Because we make it like a fantasy in our heads. Like
No.
you guys had the perfect relationship. You were on the horse.
Listen,
we saw you on the horse.
We had
It was
pure
a good-
love. We had pure love, but that does not mean that we were not human and our egos did not get attached in aspects of our relationship. But we definitely had pure love.
But you had enough intention to probably like dissect
Always.
or break down.
Always.
Okay.
Good intentions.
But break that down for people.
Yes.
About relationships and ego, and because some people probably don't even think about that.
No, and I didn't think about it until I wasn't in relationship anymore because of the death, right? A lot of times, not all the time, we are in such of in our ego that we are in possession of another person. We're not experiencing them. We're not totally loving them and letting them be free. We think we're supposed to be together forever. And that's not a spiritual relationship. Spiritual relationship is without the ego. It is we are together. I bring you up, inspire you, you inspire me. Now, if there ever comes a point where I'm not inspired anymore and that now I'm in my ego, now I feel I need to possess you, now I feel the need to control you and you're mine, I'm in my ego. And that's not love. There's love in there, but now I'm operating more in my ego and not in my pure love. And I can say this because I operated from these spaces before.
Okay. And that was from the In Real Life podcast, Angie Martinez, her interview / conversation, as I call it, with Lauren London. And you heard what she was talking about, right? So y'all know how I do. I pretty much play the clip full through, and then I'll come back to it, and then we'll break it down a little bit. So
I have another
okay, I got the clip started up again, right? So, all right.
perspective on
Sorry about that. Let me play this part of the clip first before I get into what I'm going to say.
relationships, and you don't want to have that conversation with me.
Okay.
I think a lot of them are ego driven and they're not pure.
I believe that too.
So why would I take myself in this vulnerable state?
Okay. I agree with her as well. Yes, a lot of relationships, and we're not just talking about romantic relationships, we just period, is ego driven. Let me keep playing real quick. Let me go keep playing.
Into my ego, and I'm trying to get out of it. I'm in death of the ego space. Why do I need another? Why?
Okay. Let me say this first. And this is something that I previously thought, that you have to kill the ego. But further reading, further life experiences, and watching videos and all that other stuff, and just learning things, period. The ego is necessary. The ego is necessary because it is part of our human experience. You know, you talk about as Wayne Dyer says, being a spiritual being living a human experience. So part of our human experience is having an ego, right? It's all about whether you're operating from a healthy ego or unhealthy ego. I feel as though a healthy ego recognizes the spirit, right? But a unhealthy ego doesn't recognize the spirit. It wants full control because the ego ultimately wants to protect you. The ego is basically here, part of your human experience as a just like your intuition is connected to your spiritual being to protect you. Your ego is connected to your human vessel, your body, in order to protect you from pain, hurt, all of that, just like the intuition is supposed to protect your spirit, right? Just the intuition is can't be explained the same way the ego can be because that intention comes from a spiritual place. If you aren't connected to your spiritual being or you aren't connected to the Most High or God or whatever, you can't resonate or feel or understand when that intuition is working. If you're more caught up into the extreme of this human life that you're living, then that ego will play a huge role in your life, But if you haven't found that balance between your spiritual and your spiritual being and your human being, then it's going to be out of whack. You know what I'm saying? When you have a healthy ego, you're able to hold yourself accountable. You're able to hold grace for yourself as well as other people. You're also able to, with this healthy ego, you're able to have understanding for yourself. It's sort of like you have that, once you have that healthy ego, you're able to understand and feel spiritually that there's two sides to the story, but they can't be defined or understand unless you create a balance or find that middle ground between them to understand that, yes, I am human. I am susceptible to making mistakes, but understanding that ultimately I'm a good person. So those mistakes don't define me as a person, right? So I feel like people got to get out this space where they're trying to kill the ego. The ego is important. The ego, we talking about polarity, duality. See how all this crap coming together? And I don't mean to call it crap, but that's just how I speak at times. But I didn't plan this. Like, that polarity and that duality speaks to the ego side and the spiritual side. And these are two opposites, but they're connected. But you have to find a balance in that middle ground between these two things in order to live burp number 3, burp number 4, a purposeful life. But not to say that you won't have these moments where you'll have these extremes, because you will have these extreme moments where you're totally conform to the world and you're caught up into your ego and just living everything according to the physical. And then you'll have those moments where you totally detach yourself from the physical. And this is something that Lauren even mentioned in this interview, this conversation, that she never felt that she was attached to the earth. So that is an extreme of the spiritual side, that you don't even feel an attachment to your physical being, to your physical experience, your human experience. Um, am I done on my? Yeah, I'm gonna go back to the clip. All right.
Does that make my life complete? I'll never get married. Does that mean I'm not on purpose?
I need you to explain.
I'm gonna get a lot of slack for this one because I have a whole thing about it.
No, I need to know.
Okay.
That's not a small thing to drop. Like,
Okay.
Because relationships are hard as fuck.
Absolutely.
Right? And so
Mine was
it was
very hard. Hell yeah.
because we make it like a fantasy in our heads. Like,
No.
you guys had the perfect relationship. You were on the horse.
Listen,
we saw you on the horse.
We had
It was
pure
a good-
love. We had pure love.
Okay. And I'm glad that she said this and this came up because, like I said, social media is not reality. And social media, with all the memes and the videos and a lot of the other bullshit that's on social media, is they have people believing that relationships should be easy. And I'm not saying that you're supposed to go through hell and back in the relationship. That is not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is that there will be difficulties and there will be struggles in any relationship, romantic, platonic, work relationships, whatever. There will be up and down moments. There will be moments of duality, where that duality pops up into extremes, or that polarity pops up in extremes. But the way social media portrays it, the way social media has a lot of people believing that aren't really critical thinkers or aren't really have a solid foundation or aren't willing to learn that all relationships are meant to be easy. It's the society we live in today, that everything has to be about instant gratification. Like I say, we live in a microwave society. Everything has to be quick, fast, and done. And if it's not, then we have to move on to the next thing that'll make us feel good. These are vices. These are drugs. This is not healthy. It's not healthy mentally and it's not healthy emotionally. You either live in cycles from the past, from somebody else, or these are cycles that you have learned and picked up and used throughout your life. Like I said last episode, we either live in somebody else's lives, whether it be from our mother, our grandmother, our grandfather, or our father, great-grandfather. These are cycles that has been passed down. So we either live in somebody else's lives, or we picked up certain portions of their lives and applying them to our lives, and not correctly living our paths. You know what I'm saying? Let me get back to the clip. Well, hold on. Let me say this right here, because this is something that I wrote down today when I watched it for the second time. I feel as though when you dealing with a relationship, so we can say romantic relationship, platonic relationship, which is friendships or whatever relationship comes to your mind while I'm saying this. But we'll focus right now on romantic relationships. Listening to everything and just thinking about my experiences with relationships and people and stuff like that. It's not just two people when in these relationships. You dealing with four people. It's four people in a two-person relationship. And what I mean by that is you have your two staple people, which is, using myself as an example, me and my partner. Then, with those two staples right there, you got to add on another two from us. You got to add on one person for myself and another person for my partner. So you got her, which is her staple person. Let's call that person the the staple person. You got the staple female, you got your staple male. Then you got, based off of these two staples, two avatars. And these avatars are the wild cards right here. Because these avatars are basically the person that comes out in relation to your partner. We forget the fact, and this is why it's so important to understand that there will be struggles and difficulties in relationships. That relationships aren't supposed to be easy, and relationships aren't supposed to be hell as well. But there's supposed to be a middle ground to it. You're going to have difficulties. You're going to have struggles. You're going to have disagreements. You're going to have moments where you're not feeling heard. You're not feeling appreciated and stuff like that. And that is based off of how that avatar is relating to your partner. Things that they do, things that they say. And these all comes from triggers, traumas, etc., that you've experienced in your life before you start dealing with that partner. So it's 4 people in a 2-person relationship. You got your staples and you got your avatars. Those avatars speak to how the person reacts to what the other person does. It comes out in relation to what the other person does. We have to understand that. It's not black and white. There's always a gray area. There's always a middle ground. There's always a balance to these two extremes. We get so caught up into these extremes that we just bypass and miss certain things. All right, moving along. Back to the clips. To the clip.
That does not mean that we were not human and our egos did not get attached in aspects of our relationship. But we definitely have pure love.
But you had enough intention to probably like dissect
Always.
or break down.
Always.
Okay.
Good intentions.
But break that down for people.
Yes.
About.
But yeah, the attachment portion. That's part of the ego. The ego gets attached. You don't want to lose the person. This is why I say it's important to really go and listen and watch this interview / conversation, because it goes deeper even after this clip portion about the ego and how the ego responds more to fear and attachments, and how that can cause struggles and difficulties in your relationship with your partner, but more importantly, with yourself.
Relationships and ego, and because some people probably don't even think about that.
No, and I didn't think about it until I wasn't in relationship anymore because of the death, right? A lot of times, not all the time, we are in such of in our ego that we are in possession of another person. We're not experiencing them. We're not totally loving them and letting them be free. We think we're supposed to be together for.
We get so caught up into the outcome of a relationship or a partnership that we don't experience that relationship or that partnership. So we're so focused on what outcome we want to happen that we're losing precious time, we're losing precious experiences, and when it comes down to it, we fucking up the flow of things. We fucking up the natural flow of how things should be. Where we're so focused on this outcome and we getting into our feelings, which is our ego. We getting fearful, which is our ego. We trying to control things so we can get that outcome, which is our ego. that we take it totally in a different path, and we miss and lose out on things that would have been great, good or great for us. Back to the clip.
Ever. And that's not a spiritual relationship. Spiritual relationship is without the ego. It is we are together. I bring you up, inspire you, you inspire me. Now, if there ever comes a point where I'm not inspired anymore and that now I'm in my ego, now I feel I need to possess you, now I feel.
And like I said, I already don't agree with the fact about the ego is just as important. It's just about finding that healthy balance between the quote unquote good and bad portions of the ego. The ego is necessary. The ego allows you, like I said, in my point of view, it allows you to hold a person accountable, to give grace, but to also understand that, there are difficulties and issues or things that need to be brought up. That's part of, like they always say, having those difficult conversations to understand that, I love you, you love me. But this situation right here is causing a rift between us. You aren't understanding where I'm coming from, or you aren't respecting me and stuff like that. So we should have this conversation so you can get a better understanding of it. But both people have to be open, and that's where it comes down to the healthy ego. Both people have to be able to tap into that healthy ego in order to have these conversations, to not feel fearful, to not get into their feelings, to take stuff personal and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? That's the balance between the ego and the spiritual side or whatever. To understand, yeah, I'm human, so I might, overlook this, or, didn't respect you in this moment, or understand, or didn't value, or whatever. But I'm open enough for you to let me know how you feel, and we can assess what I can do better in these situations in the future.
The need to control.
That's the healthy ego.
Mine, I'm in my ego. And that's not love. There's love in there, but now I'm operating more in my ego and not in my pure love. And I can say this because I operated from these spaces before.
Yeah. So that was the end of the clip. But like I said, make sure y'all go watch the interview and the conversation, because it was very refreshing, and it's very necessary. If you got all these people sitting there talking about all these dudes got podcasts, or they just giving anybody podcasts. Excuse me, burp number 5. Take the time to listen to some shit that's not controversial, or not clickbait, or people trying to get followers and shit. Because there's a lot of podcasts out here that's just doing clickbait shit, or having topics or conversations or whatever to try to get people to listen, and you know what I'm saying? That's not what I do here. You know what I'm saying? I keep the shit real, and you always gonna get the real on this podcast. It's as simple as that. But yeah, back to the clip. Nobody wants to feel like an accessory. Nobody wants to feel possessed and stuff like that. And just piggybacking off of how society is with the instant gratification, and thinking that all relationships are supposed to be easy and stuff like that. And as soon as you have a difficulty or struggle, then it's time to move on to the next. But that's just being an accessory. Nobody, I ain't gonna say nobody, because there's people that really go through these cycles of each and every relationship is the same damn thing, just a different person or whatever. I'll speak for myself. I don't want to be an accessory. I don't want to be an accessory that as soon as something don't go your way, or it doesn't go according to what somebody else's relationship is doing, or if I'm not supporting you the same way as somebody else is supporting you or speaking to you, you have to allow people to be themselves. And if you can't rock with it, then that's just what it's going to have to be. But don't sit here and stay, you know what I'm saying, and and use a person as an accessory for you to show them off on social media, which I call attention ships, or you know what I'm saying, or just so you can say that you have somebody, or so you don't be alone or whatever, but you're not really rocking with this person for real. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can sit here all day and say that you have care and love for somebody, but do you actually like this person? Do you actually enjoy being around them and stuff like that? So yeah, I thought this was a great, you know what I'm saying, interview conversation. I will keep saying that shit, but yeah. But healthy relationships, man, it's about enjoying the connection, man, and not getting attached to an outcome and stuff like that. You know, and comparing yourself and comparing relationships to somebody else, and trying to make sure your relationship looks some way in order to, so you don't get a question asked or people ain't in your business or whatever, because there's a lot of miserable people out here that just in your business and ask questions because they want to make sure that they can validate why they in the fucked up relationship and shit like that. Well, man, I'm an hour and 44 minutes in. I still have stuff left beyond the Blackity Black Woke segment, but I'll save it for next week. But this is the end of Psychopaths. I'm not going to continue this series. I feel like I'm a preacher at times with these series that I've been having. But hey, I come from a family of pastors and preachers, so I guess, you know, that's part of my DNA, so to speak. But yeah, you're not going to find me being a pastor or preacher, because I will not box myself in that way. Yeah. I feel like I'm supposed to be, never mind. But yeah, this is a Taste to Consider podcast. Make sure you check out greatestiamblog.com. That's greatestiamblog.com. I got 2 new blogs up there. Once again, I told you I'm not on social media promoting and marketing my latest blogs and podcasts. So appreciate everybody who's listening, taking the time to listen and read and all that other stuff. If you feel the need to share and all that other stuff, and you know, that's cool. You know what I'm saying? I'm not even trying to focus my mind on that stuff no more. But yeah, you can follow the podcast on whatever streaming service that you listen to it on to get the alerts. You can download, listen, and then undownload. So, you know, I can get the numbers or whatever. It is what it is at this point. I enjoy doing what I'm doing, and I'm just going to do that. And, you know, God is in control. But yeah, like I said, I end every episode off with a song, and this song right here is Pac. I'm keeping it Pac this episode. Pac, Unconditional Love. Let's go.